Welcome, and thank you for standing by. Today's call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. All participants are in a listen-only mode until the question-and-answer session of today's conference. At that time, questions will only be taken over the online Q&A feature. I would now like to turn the conference over to your host, Meghan Maury from the U.S. Census Bureau. You may now begin.
Thank you so much, operator. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. I'm Meghan Maury, a senior advisor here at the U.S. Census Bureau, and I'm excited to be joining you for today's webinar on understanding the April 2021 demonstration data. Today's webinar is designed to help our audience understand the demonstration data that the Census Bureau released this week, and to make sure you know how to navigate some of the tools we've provided to empower data users to analyze that demonstration data. I'm joined today by Michael Hawes. Michael Hawes is part of a team that works on building the 2020 Disclosure Avoidance System. His role has been to take in user feedback and make sure it's well reflected in how the algorithm is built. I'm also joined by Matt Spence, who hopefully we will have on video in a moment. Matt's part of our population division. He approaches the Disclosure Avoidance System both as an internal data user, looking at how changes to the algorithm perform for the purposes of his own data use, but also is part of the team that's helping to provide the tools that let internal and external data users more easily see the changes to the algorithm reflected in the ultimate data that's produced. And there's Matt now. I'll start off by grounding us in a little bit of shared language to make sure we're all on the same page throughout this webinar. Then Michael will take the mic and explain some of the changes that have been made to the system that you'll see reflected in the sample data. Matt will then jump in and show you the tools his team has built to analyze the system. And Michael will give us a bit more information about how the privacy accuracy balance was set for this release. Finally, we'll reiterate the information about how you can provide feedback to the team, and we'll round out any time we have left with questions from our audience. So let me just pause for a moment to talk about who this webinar was really designed for. Unlike some of the other webinars on differential privacy that you may have attended in the past, we're actually not covering what you might think of as differential privacy 101 today. Instead, we'll be providing information that's most appropriate for people that have already spent some time engaging with the concepts of differential privacy or disclosure avoidance systems more generally. If that's you, we're so glad that you're here. If you're not sure if that's you or not, we encourage you to stick around. We'll do our best to make the information we provide today as accessible as possible. If you are sure that's not you and you feel like you need a differential privacy 101 before you're ready to engage with the demonstration data, we encourage you to take a look at the information about differential privacy on census.gov and or to join us next week for a differential privacy 101 webinar. Once you feel more comfortable with that information, we hope you'll take the time to listen to the recording of this session so you can engage more deeply with the demonstration data. Now, before we really jump in, let me cover a couple of technical pieces. First, I want to make sure to say that the views expressed in this presentation and by the panelists are those of the speakers and not the Census Bureau. Second, I really encourage you to type any questions you have in the Q&A box you'll see on your screen. While we may not get to everyone's questions during today's session, we will take all of the questions that you submit today and attempt to either, again, answer them during this session, answer them during subsequent webinars, or follow up with you individually to make sure you have all the information you need. Finally, we'll be posting a video of this webinar. If you're watching the recording and have a question for the team, don't hesitate to email us at 2020das@census.gov. With that, let's start with a tiny bit of terminology to make sure everyone understands the terms we're using in this webinar. First, I want to make sure that people understand that we're talking about disclosure avoidance systems. A disclosure avoidance system is a tool we use to protect the privacy of respondents by ensuring that the information they provide to the Census Bureau stays confidential. It's kind of like an umbrella term that helps us describe what we're doing to protect confidentiality. Differential privacy is actually a system of accounting that helps us measure the amount of privacy loss associated with a particular disclosure avoidance tool. I know that difference seems a little complicated, so to put it another way, differential privacy helps us assess the risk of disclosure associated with the decennial census data after the top-down algorithm is applied. which I'm sure leads you to the question of what on earth is the top-down algorithm? The top-down algorithm is basically the algorithm or the formula we're using in 2020 to ensure that your data can't be re-identified. The top-down algorithm works a little bit like our other systems we've used in the past, like the swapping algorithm, but it's a much more complex tool than those more simplified systems were. As our panelists speak today, you may hear a few other terms that are new to you, like PPMF or geographic sign. We'll try to explain those terms as we go, but if you hear something you don't understand, please feel free to use that Q&A feature, and we'll try to clarify for you today or in a follow-up conversation.